All right, one more bit of business before we get out of here. Jamaica. Herc has a new manager, Steve McClaren, taking over for Heimir Hallgrimsson, who resigned after the Copa America to take over the Ireland job. McClaren arrives after stepping down from his position as a first-team coach on Erik ten Hag's staff at Manchester United, which is definitely a bit of surprise. So here's a look at McClaren's CV. His last stint as an international manager way back in 2006-2007 with England, when, of course, they failed to qualify for the 2008 European Championships. For more on this hire, we bring in our resident Jamaican passport holder, Alexis Nunes, who joins us from the comfort of our Los Angeles studios. Alexis, I hear you've been talking to some folks down in Jamaica. Give us the scoop here. How did JFF pull this off, especially considering that McClaren already had a job, a pretty good one at that, at Manchester United?
Yes, I mean, he already does have a job. He still has that job, and he still is currently with Manchester United back at Carrington, kind of welcoming all the players that were taking part in the Euros and Copa America and ensuring that they're fit for the new season, which is why he did not come on Manchester United's US tour. But I think that's the question everyone's asking. If you're still a part of Manchester United, why take this challenge at Jamaica, you know, because we do know that Jamaica still have quite a bit to go in terms of getting to the level at least where I would like to see this current Reggae Boys squad. And look, Steve McClaren has been a massive part of Manchester United. He was part of Sir Alex Ferguson's coaching staff many years ago. He came in when Erik ten Hag came in. He was actually, though, assistant manager. And since then, since the arrival of the likes of Ruud van Nistelrooy this summer, he has kind of gone down a couple of notches, and he's first team coach. So that probably tells you a little bit on what could have swayed his decision to choose this. But he also said that he did just want a different challenge. He does have some international experience. He was assistant manager or assistant coach when Sven-Göran Eriksson was manager of England. He then became England manager as well. So according to the JFF, they told me, look, it was just the perfect time because for the JFF and for the Reggae Boys, he was the one candidate that ticked all of their boxes in terms of club experiences, having been able to coach some of the big name or brand name players is what we call them in Jamaica, but also has that international experience. And look, you know, to lead the Reggae Boys into this World Cup, and respectfully to everyone else, because we still do have to qualify, but it is a World Cup where we are expecting to qualify, considering we don't have to worry about the US, Mexico, or Canada. I think that would be a big notch as well on the belt for Steve McClaren.
And you want to know why he left Man United? I'm a Man United fan. Just look at the team over the years. All right. What's the reaction been in Jamaica? I'm very curious because I thought things were going well until they weren't. So what was that reaction, and what exactly are we expecting with Steve McClaren? What is he bringing to the team?
Herc, you know, I'm not going to lie. Like yesterday, were I not working the Manchester United game against Real Betis when this news was confirmed, I was ready to go and print a Steve McClaren jersey on my Reggae Boys jersey. I was absolutely excited. We've been talking all summer long, especially after Greg Berhalter left US Soccer, that the US need that kind of big name to just get them to that next level. And it's the same thing for our Reggae Boys. On Futbol Americas before the Copa America, we talked so much about how I thought, in my opinion, this is the most talented, experienced group of players I think we have had, you know, more talented and experienced than the group that actually took us to our only World Cup back in 1998. And I think that we saw them, or we keep seeing them getting close, you know, nearly beating the US, nearly beating Mexico, and Mexicos that aren't as strong as the Mexicos that we know, and USAs that probably aren't as strong as USAs of before. So it's finally time to just get a big name to take Jamaica to that next level. So you are consistently competing with the USA, with the Mexicos, with the Canadas, and getting those results. I think it had to be a change in the mentality as well. You know, Coach Hallgrimsson definitely, I think, got the boys playing how I would like them to play. We saw lots of progress in his years, but Steve McClaren is a completely different level, I think. And the JFF said that. They said that, you know, he ticked all the boxes. He is that big name. He's also attractive to the other players that are probably Europe-based, not only in attracting more players in Europe who have Jamaican heritage, who probably will now be wanting or considering if they could play for Jamaica going into the World Cup, but also one thing that we have struggled with is getting our Europe-based players back for major international windows. And now the JFF has said with someone, a big name like Steve McClaren, who everybody knows and respects in the UK, they think that it's going to be hard to tell the big man no when we call for our players for these major international windows, because the whole point now going forward is not to just call the big stars for the big games, you know, against, say, the USA or, say, Canada or any other things. We have Cuba coming up next in the Nations League in September. And you would want as close to your strong squad as possible so that they can gel, because that has been my biggest criticism of the Reggae Boys since we've continuously tried to qualify for the World Cups in '98. I think that they don't bring them together enough or have them spending enough times together so that there is that consistency and that familiarity going into a major tournament.
Alexis, obviously, manager is massively important to a national team program. But I feel like when we talk about Jamaica, really what we're talking about are the players, and the players who are sometimes there and sometimes not there, to your point. And there's not a bigger name for me in that Jamaican pool. There's not a better player. There's not a more important player to that team than Leon Bailey. And he had the exact same situation that you're describing, right? They called him in, but ultimately he wasn't there. So specifically when it comes to the Leon Bailey situation, how does Steve McClaren coming in impact whether Bailey will be coming and joining the Jamaican team on a regular basis, as obviously you and all other Jamaica fans want to see?
Honestly, this is finally time, I think, for a clean slate. You know, any new manager represents a new chapter, a new, you know, book, I suppose. And I think this is exactly what Steve McClaren represents. Now, the thing about Leon is that his situation or his issues are really with the federation itself and never really was with the manager. However, there was, I suppose, a little issue with the manager in terms of the fact that he stood him down or he dropped him because he was late for curfew in the last international window last year around October, November. And then that, to me, though, was a straw that broke the camel's back for Leon. I think that was just a knee-jerk reaction to what was a snowball effect of a number of issues that he's not the only player that has spoken out about it. We constantly talk about what the Reggae girls have had to deal with as well. So I think for him, as he says, he's called it a mental break to kind of just take himself away from it. He spoke really passionately about the issues and made certain demands. You know, whether or not he really is expecting those demands or not are another story. But I think Steve McClaren definitely represents a massive, at least an opening of the door for the JFF to reconcile with Leon Bailey in this current situation. Because, look, I know Leon very well, and a World Cup, any player wants to play in it. And the fact that we have only qualified for that '98 World Cup, which is held in such lore, Leon would want to definitely be a part of it. And he knows that he's the main man for our Reggae Boys right now. And like I said, a player as big as Leon Bailey will definitely have respect and respect a manager as big as Steve McClaren. I will be surprised. I've been told by the JFF that he's expected on the island sometime next week, where he will have his official press conference as manager of the Reggae Boys after the Olympics, because, you know, we're all watching the track and field until then. And after that, I will definitely be surprised if he hasn't already even reached out to Leon or at least to Aston Villa to kind of see what direction they can take to start patching things up. Because, as you said, it doesn't get bigger than Leon Bailey right now in the form he's in for the Reggae Boys.
I look at some of the players that have been brought in, big names, Mikel Antonio, Damari Gray. I can't help but think that Steve McClaren, with his ties in the UK and football in England, with over 200 possible dual nationals in that pyramid, is going to be an important factor, and that's part of the reason that they brought him in.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that model, I suppose, of using players who are born abroad and have Jamaican heritage is exactly what worked for us back in '98. You know, we had the likes of a good friend of ours at ESPN in Robbie Earl, and since then we've had plenty other players who have led the line, such as Marlon King, Joby McAnuff, Gareth McCleary, you know, Jermaine Beckford. The list goes on and on and on. Right now, even you do have, as you mentioned, Mikel Antonio, Bobby de Cordova-Reid. It's something that we have always relied on, and it helps because they bring that experience of going up against some bigger players in Europe or in the UK, and they help to translate that experience to some of the local born and bred players back home in Jamaica. And it was always such, I think, a good balance. But before, you know, the years have come and gone, qualifying campaigns have come and gone, and it's not quite clicked as yet. I know a lot of people back home felt a bit aggrieved with that model after a while, because they were saying that, you know, how can you have a home match and have people feel like they're playing at home when majority of the starting 11 is born and bred in England? You know, they weren't used to the conditions, they weren't used to the heat, they weren't used to playing at the national stadium in Jamaica, and those pitches can be special. But it's something that, you know, we have heavily relied on. And I think with Steve McClaren there, as we said, it not only will help get and attract some more of those players, but also allow some of the bigger clubs to free up our players to play in these international windows. It doesn't matter if it's just a match against Cuba or just a match against Honduras. What I would like to see is consistency. What I would like to see is some of that harmony that we see the other bigger teams in the world playing with, especially as we go into a World Cup.
Alexis, we spend a lot of time on this show criticizing federations, right? We're pretty harsh on U.S. Soccer Federation. We're pretty harsh on FMF. Recently, Canada Soccer has been catching a lot of strays on this show. The Jamaican Federation, for years and years and years, to me, has underdelivered. For the talent on that island, for the talent in that pool, has underdelivered. Don't even get me started on what's happened with the women's national team program over the years, which I know you're very well versed on, and the lack of funding and support that they've received. Do you have a sense right now, either because of this hire or because of some of the other things that you're seeing with some of these dual nationals? I know you talked to a lot of the guys over in Europe. Do you get a sense that things are changing for the better at JFF?
I think the hiring of a Steve McClaren and then just the fact that Steve McClaren has accepted tells me that things are going in the right direction, tells me that they're thinking exactly in the direction that we would want them to think, you know, because we talk about overall making the JFF and the football, I suppose, family in Jamaica just a more professional, well-oiled machine. And that includes the women, you know, because I still think that the fact that the Reggae Girls have qualified for 2 World Cups, and you still go back home and there's no or not as many grassroots women's programs at all for girls, there's such a disjoint there that, you know, we still don't understand. But of course, economically, we are not as placed as some of the other countries in CONCACAF, like the USA or Canada. And I do agree that that definitely is an issue too. But I think that the resources are still there to definitely make this, or to capitalize on what we have seen both the men and women's team doing. And I think a hiring like Steve McClaren is definitely a step in the right direction. The fact that he has accepted it, the fact that even Steve Bruce also considered this job as well, shows you exactly the intention of the JFF. And for me, I think it's good news all around.
Halgrimsson's out, new coach in, 2 years out from a World Cup where the U.S., Canada, and Mexico are not in front of you for qualification. If Jamaica does not qualify for this World Cup, how big of a failure is it?
That would be the biggest failure, I think, in our history of football. That I cannot even fathom that. The door is open for us, and all we literally have to do is step in. You cannot tell me that you have the most amount of Premier League players on this Jamaica team in the starting 11, players like Leon Bailey, Bobby De Cordova, Reed, Mikel Antonio. We will see his situation if he's able to go on for the next 2 years before this World Cup. And then a coach of Steve McClaren's stature and not make a World Cup that has since been expanded, that would be the biggest failure for us, for sure. I would honestly have to beg you to give me another passport, Herc.
And you got plenty of them. Alexis Nunes joining us from our Los Angeles studios. Alexis, tell us about your schedule. Where do they got you going next?
Sebi, well, I'm going to get a taste of what you got to talk about with Robert Lewandowski, because I'm off to the East Coast now, because we have El Clasico that is going to be in New York. And our producer, Beto, wants to tell everyone that he's going to be there, too. He's absolutely buzzing. But, you know, it doesn't get bigger in the world than El Clasico. And to have that in New York with the diaspora there, it's going to be exciting.
Absolutely. I was in Dallas last year for the Clásico, and I tell you, there is no such thing as a friendly or an exhibition match when it comes to Barcelona and Real Madrid. Alexis Nunes, always great to have you with us here on Futbol Americas as we take a look ahead to the soccer schedule coming up here on ESPN Plus. Nice triple header for you on Saturday, including that Real Madrid-Barca game. Also on Saturday, Manchester City-Chelsea. That one is 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time on main ESPN. And then we got Man United against Liverpool Saturday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. That one also on ESPN.